When you're young and rich in Beverly Hills, the fun can last all night. The night can last all day.
I think Julian's in a lot of trouble.
But the last thing you expect is to wake up to less than zero.
Everyone is accountable.
Julian! Andrew McCarthy, Robert Downey Jr., Jamie Gertz, James Spader.
Do whatever I can. I'll do whatever it takes.
Less than zero. Rated R. Now playing at theaters everywhere.
I am from beyond. Listen, and all you desire will be yours. Welcome to Spider-Dan and the Secret Balls. Prepare for Prattle.
Nativity Stories.
Welcome to Prattle World. I am your host, the ever-amazing, ever-spectacular Spider-Dan, and in this podcast, I spotlight entertainment's best-kept secrets that a mainstream audience may find boring. And welcome to Alternativity Stories, a month-long look at alternative stories set around the most wonderful time of year. And we have come to the end of 2024, the final podcast, and what a way to go out. Unfortunately, Andy couldn't join us for Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence, but I think we will do that. We'll return to that topic at a future point. But luckily, my hero, Tony Farina, has saved the day yet again. Right again when I need it at Christmas time. He's free, he's available, and he wants to talk. He was like, let's do this next year. And I went, you know what? I need it now, Tony. Deliver it now. I need something. You're interested. Let's go. So we're talking about the, let's see, morally ambivalent, nihilistic, young people in Beverly Hills, brat pack, whatever you want to call it, Less Than Zero. The Bret Easton Ellis, a writer of American Psychos, very unusual first novel that got adapted, finger quotes, into this film starring Andrew McCarthy, Robert Downey Jr., James Spader, and Jamie Gertz. Welcome back, Tony. It's been a little while. How are you?
It has. Thank you. I'm okay. I've been really busy with the job. I got a new job. I'm a dean now.
You're a dean. The dean.
I'm a dean.
You're
That
a
is
dean.
very time consuming, it turns out. And it more so because I was still teaching when I got the job. And so since that went away, and so my whole goal
Not only that, Tony, not only that, you are doing podcasts, you're doing seasons greetings when you can. You are also writing your own series of novels and books. And you're contributing and editing to, here, I've got it here, Comics Lit.
Ooh, yes, volume 2 coming soon.
All the people that are listening to this is only going to be audio, so nobody's going to see
they
the
don't
lovely
see
cover.
how cool it looks.
It does look good. The light hits it in the right way, and it even gets
It
a
does.
bit blurry when it's in focus.
It's a glorious cover with the comic book adaptation representation of our good friend and my twin sister Tanya Todd and Eric Lee. What I love about the cover of that book is you can tell that the editors, the people who built the cover, actually read the book because they knew
they
make
knew what it was about.
the Superman character look like Eric. I was like, that's so cool. I love it.
I mean, like, if you're going to be inspired by anybody, why not the people of the book?
Right, yeah. So it's very cool. We have our essayist, our forward person will be Eric Grissom of Goblin fame. Brian for volume 2. So very cool. And volume 3, with which somebody on this podcast may be participating in.
Maybe
that forward, by the way, just in case you want to know who's going to do the forward for volume 3, Brenna Thumler, Eisner nominee. Did you know she turned one of her Sheets books into a musical? And so she's an Eisner nominee musical writer, graphic novelist. Brenna Thumler will be writing our forward for volume 3.
Award-winning, award-nominated.
She's an Eisner nominee.
Yeah,
she's won tons
crazy.
of awards. Yeah,
That's
she's great.
crazy.
So anyway, so very cool. So you'll get to say, oh, remember that time I was in a book with Brenna Thumler? You're like,
remember that time I was a published writer? Who would have thought? Who would have thought me?
I'm so excited.
The dyslexic, dyspraxic, ADHD suffering me would be a published writer.
It's going to be amazing. I'm so excited.
I'm very excited, actually. I'm really excited.
It's going to be cool.
I used to write some articles back in the day. I remember I did one on Captain Marvel. I did a whole big. We used to have a podcast back in the day, it was amazing. Lots of fun, and I wrote kind of top fives and things like that on the odd article. But I
Shocking.
wrote one. I know, right?
So off brand for you.
And yes, I know. Who could ever guess? Who could have foreseen all of this? But yeah, it's there in the backlogs. I'm going to be very rusty in my spelling. I'm sure my punctuation will be very sloppy, but you guys will be there to
We'll be there. That's what we're here for.
To guide me, support me, and to inspire me as well.
It's very exciting.
And I will leave all these links in the show notes where you can buy all of Tony's good stuff.
Thank you.
I own it as well. Check them out; they're brilliant as always. But we're plugging you enough.
We're plugging me. Well, that was not what we. That's just why I'm busy, as you were said. So it turned into the plugs. And just so you know, I am, as you can see, my ukulele's behind me. Of course, this is an audio medium. But I've been working on a children's puppet show. And I've been writing the songs for the different characters. And there's so far, we're just going to send it to our granddaughter, Marley. But, who knows? It could turn into...
How forgetting Sarah Marshall of you.
God, it is. It's not going to be... I didn't even think about that. That's it. Jason Segel, what a writer.
What a ledge. What a ledge.
Yeah, Shrinking is exceptional. Chef's Kiss. If you've not watched Shrinking, it's Harrison Ford's best work.
Wow, that's high praise.
He showed up and decided to act.
Did he actually like what he was doing?
You can tell he's having all the fun. Jason Segel, Jessica Williams, the cast.
I feel like someone took him to one side and was like, do you mind not being a miserable bastard all the time, Harrison?
He plays the miserable bastard. That's the thing. It's worth saying. Anyway, but yes, I didn't even think about that. But these aren't those kinds of creepy Muppet puppets that Jason Segel loves, of course, which, he wrote that Muppets reboot movie.
He did. Excellent.
And that was actually a banger too.
Forget Wicked. Go back to the Muppet film.
Him and Amy Adams. I love that movie. That was great. Anyway, so I'm working on that too, just songwriting and doing silly shit. That's what I do.
Speaking of Amy Adams, I'd like to recommend a film to you, Tony. I don't know if you've seen it in the press.
I want to see it desperately.
Have you read it? I know it's a book.
I have not read it. No.
But I think you would love it. It is the most Rhea Carrigan film I've ever seen.
It looks amazing. It is amazing. Great. Okay,
great
well,
film.
I will add it to the list of awesome. And now that I know, Rhea just texted. You say her name and she appears. I will add. I didn't realize it was a book, so I'll go check it out. I think it's Yorm Taccone from the Lonely Island. I believe his wife is the writer or director of that film.
Yeah, maybe.
I'm pretty sure that's true.
Yeah, I'm not sure myself. I just know I had to go see it, and I know I enjoyed it.
Okay, well, I'm all in.
But speaking of books, Tony.
Speaking of books,
we're here to talk about Bret Easton Ellis's Less Than Zero. Kind of by way of Hollywood executives interpreting that.
Yes.
But why don't you tell us a little bit about Bret Easton Ellis himself, if people are familiar, his work. They're probably more familiar with American Psycho, and what this book was, and there was also a sequel as well.
Correct. I came to this. So when Bret Easton Ellis wrote Less Than Zero, it came out in 1985. And I was 12, so I did not read it in 1985. But I was definitely an advanced reader, but I was not reading. I didn't get my hot little dirty hands on this. When the film came out in 87, I was a freshman in high school. And then, so when it came out in November of 87. So it must have been the next, because back then, remember, kids, when things came out on VHS, they didn't come out a month later. They weren't streaming. You had to wait. So sometimes you'd wait almost a year.
A year, I think.
Yeah. So by the time it came out, I was probably 14, 15, probably I saw this in 88. And I saw the film. I was 15. I was like, that's a film I enjoyed. I loved the soundtrack, which I bought on cassette and still own.
Wow. Tony is showing us the cassette, the original cassette he bought
which
back in
you
the day.
Can't actually get this. I never was pressed on CD. You can't. This
Really?
is it. If you want the Less Than Zero soundtrack, it doesn't stream, which is weird because it's a Def Jam. Because Rick Rubin was this music supervisor, so it's weird.
I will say the film it's a 20th Century Fox film, and it's not available on Disney Plus or I believe Hulu either.
It's nowhere. It's hard. It's hard to find. We found copies.
The places you can find it streaming are Less Than Zero.
Yeah. But see that Def Jam recording. So it's crazy to me that it's a compilation. So I love the soundtrack. To be fair, my favorite thing about the film at the time was the soundtrack. For my money, the greatest rock cover of all time is the Bangles' Hazy Shade of Winter.
I bought it this week on iTunes.
It's ridiculously good, right? It's
I still buy my music, Tony.
I do too. I'm a music buyer as well. I mean, it's all weird. Everybody's got a thing. Some people will only buy books and not get them from the library. And some people will only, I'm with you. I buy music. I go to Hoopla Digital and I try it. Because the artist gets $3 every time you check something out on Hoopla Digital. And then if I like it, I buy it 100%. But I actually own a bunch of Bangles albums from back in the day. So shocking.
I think they were extremely talented and extremely beautiful as well.
Both things are true. Both things are true. Yes. And so, boy, can they harmonize like a boss. And so their version of this was like they were the perfect fit for that. And they do cut one of the verses from it and actually, and so they actually sent Paul Simon like the bottle of booze, because that they cut from that verse is pretty funny. But this is, I think, personally, the greatest cover of all time. And the movie starts with it. It's so good. They're great. And then obviously the LL Cool J is on it, and his Going Back to Cali is a great song, and Aerosmith has an excellent cover. It's just a great soundtrack. And so I love music. So for me, the music being so good sort of romanticized it. And I did love at the end, and we obviously are going to spoil the fuck out of this. So I'm actually going to skip to the end.
This is your Tonya Todd spoiler warning.
Spoiler alert. I did the balls of this at 15, the balls of this movie to kill one of the main characters at the end. I was impressed by that. And so then Heath, my friend, who you can hear sometimes on Heath and Tony talk about, and he's in Comics Lit as well. He and I were like talking about it, and it was like, oh yeah, there's the book, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So then it was like, oh, so that was the rabbit hole for me. So I was probably like 15 or 16 maybe is when I went and read and maybe it was even the year later, but I read Less Than Zero, the book. And it was quite a bit different from the film. As I recalled, Julian does not die at the end. Julian is hardly in the book at all. He's more of a side plot point. And the Clay from the movie and the Clay from the book are name only, not even remotely the same characters. But I found that interesting. It was kind of one of those moments where, and I never felt, even at the time, probably because I saw the movie first, I didn't feel the book was better than the movie. I mean, I've really, truly not read the book since then until preparing for this. I read the book. And then in 2010, there was a sequel called Imperial Bedrooms, which is a commentary on the film. It's super meta. So Easton Ellis writes the book. The movie gets made. He openly hates the movie. Everybody involved in the movie, McCarthy included, kind of hates the final product of the movie. Like, it's not the movie they set out to make. It's not the movie they signed on for. Nothing. This is the ultimate studio interference film, which I'm sure we will discuss at length. So then he writes the sequel, Imperial Bedrooms, which is super meta because he has Andrew McCarthy read the audiobook, which is how I consumed it, which is totally worth it. It's really a novella. It's not very long. And it's really like commentary on that. And it's a way for him to remind you that the Clay in the movie and the Clay in the book are not the same person at all, just as a clear reminder. Imperial Bedrooms was the first 80% of it was ridiculously amazing. And then it gets to the final, and really not, I mean, he's a bastard. Clay's a bastard. But it's really bad at the end. And then it's over. And it's like, oh, fuck, that was brutal. But what a commentary. What a crazy choice. And then Easton Ellis, he, a few years later, after Imperial Bedrooms, put out Lunar Park, which Easton Ellis is the main character in Lunar Park.
Okay.
And all of his characters haunt him. And in it, Patrick Bateman, guess who he looks like?
Christian Bale?
100%. Yep. So it is, again, so he's constantly playing with this idea of the way he's been adapted, because I like the book American Psycho in a different way than I like the movie. I can reread American Psycho. It's hard to rewatch American Psycho.
Okay. Yeah, I get that.
But there's things that happen in the movie that don't happen in the book that are really great. And there's things that happen in the book that don't happen in the movie that are really great. And it's still such like one of the most biting satires of all time.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
what Easton Ellis does as a out, bisexual man really kicking heterosexual dudes right in the teeth. And there's lots of like, gay bashing and, the fear mongering and all of that stuff. And he just addresses it point blank. And I always have appreciated that about his writings. All of his book, Rules of Attraction. I saw
the movie. I saw the movie.
Yeah. And I don't think I read, what is it, The Informers? Actually, I don't think I read.
Yeah, I think that's a newer one, isn't it?
Yeah, right. Yeah. So, but all of his writing is really honest and brutal and nihilistic, which I'm sure we'll discuss. And so that is how it is. So he just kind of is, while Douglas Coupland, who also has kind of famously followed this Easton Ellis path as writing, as he's gotten older, his writing has gotten even more and more jaded than it was. But Douglas Coupland is the one who gave us the term Generation X. He wrote a book called Generation X, and that's where it came from. So they were always kind of tied together. Jay McInerney, who wrote Bright Lights, Big City, which is another nihilistic piece of amazing book written in second person, misunderstood film, also with James Spader. That's Michael J. Fox and James Spader in Bright Light, Big City.
Right.
Worth seeing, I would say. I'm not sure if it's set at Christmas, but there's definitely a lot of cocaine. Just like in this movie.
All the snow.
Yeah. So anyway, and again, Brett is an interesting guy. He is an iconoclast. He pisses people off. He's out and about, and he's obviously, I think he's like a libertarian.
Yeah, I read. I was looking kind of at some of the things about him, just doing a little bit of research, and he said, I think in 2023, he said, "I'm not a conservative. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. They're both fucking crazy."
Correct.
So he's like, I'm neither.
Yeah, I think he leans libertarian.
I think so.
And I'll be honest, I understand that. I understand the inclination. The older I get, the more liberal I get, the less libertarian I am. There was a stretch in my life where I believed in libertarianism and I believed in get the fuck out of my way and leave me alone. But of course, I do want social services and I do want libraries. And I realize that like that to me is all part of the social contract. And that's so like even as a libertarian, you want those things for the public good. Because like Randians, libertarianism, which is like fuck everybody, isn't the same. And maybe that's where he is. Maybe he's moved to Randian. Maybe he's an objectivist. Zack Snyder is an objectivist, which it's all over the Man of Steel movies,
I was going to say you can't move for that.
That's not a secret, right? I mean, if you didn't know, and then you say Zack Snyder's an objectivist, you're like, oh, so that comes. And I think too, Bret Easton Ellis, I'll be honest, sold his first book when he was 20 years old. His movie was adapted when he was 22 years old. They asked him to direct this movie, and he's like, I'm in college. So I think it's easier to be an objectivist when you have met your potential, as it were, as a young man in your 20s. And now you're rolling in dough. It's a lot easier to be like, fuck, look at me. I bootstrapped my way up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, everyone else, I suffered, so everyone else should suffer.
Right, exactly. That kind of thing. So anyway, that's my incoherent Bret Easton Ellis, non-Wikipedia from my brain. He's an interesting cat.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like for me, like when I was young, American Psycho was a big film, had a big impact on me when we were doing the corporate executives. So I'm sure you enjoyed that one. I did. The corporate executives podcast. We talked about Patrick Bateman in length and
as
what
you
that
should
film
have.
does.
That was such keen analysis, you and Andrew.
I was saying to Andy with all the Luigi Mangione stuff that's going on, I was like, our podcasts have got strangely relevant with the Batman. And
crazy, I know,
and the portrayal of the Riddler and then what he's attempting to do, and then Elon Musk recently, like I think today, they've announced that the government have given Elon Musk some money and taken it away from a children's cancer,
no doubt about that,
service or of some kind. There's money that has gone on Elon's pocket and out of these poor kids with cancer, basically, his cancer research. So yeah, not surprised there, is it? But yeah, when I was looking up the book, it was quite interesting to kind of, because I'd seen the film before about, to this day, in fact, 8 years to this day.
Was that the first time you saw it then?
That was the very first time I saw it.
Wow,
before I started the podcast, I did my own kind of alternativity stories before I even had a chance to talk about it. And I found Less Than Zero, and I said, this is definitely not a Christmas movie. So this is definitely on the list, even though it's set entirely around Christmas, has all the dressing, has all the trees and tinsel and everything, baubles, whatever. But it's anything but Christmas.
Yeah.
And this is probably one of the more depressing ones we've done in alternativity stories. and when we only just did Spencer. So yeah,
we know how. Spoiler alert for that one, right?
Yeah, we know how that
one ends. Okay.
But yeah, so yeah, it was interesting to see the differences and what the book was about, and again, these kind of rich kids that are living in LA, living their best lives, but also being empty inside and hollow, and they're all trying to find their next thing or the thing that excites them, and that's when and it's kind of more of a stream of consciousness, I believe. I've not read it myself.
There's no chapters.
There's no arc really until near the end, I think Ellis said, and it was very interesting to kind of read that, and I kind of had to do it by character, and a lot of the characters are at least mentioned in the film by name, but they don't really have the same effect that they do in the novel. And I think a couple of characters are maybe combined. I think James Spader's character is a couple of characters kind of
it's easier to just have him be Rip. Yeah, because there's a couple of characters that like Rip and Rip's. There's like Rip's lackey in this. That guy has a bigger role in the book, but it's just that one you're fine with. Like that's an easy shorthand. Plus you got Spader.
Like I get it. I get the to make it more like work narratively. I get that you would kind of just go, okay, there's something here in this, this kind of 3-hander, 4-hander kind of thing going on. But like some of the stuff I was reading that happened in the book, I was like, that does sound more American Psycho to me. There's,
it's clearly the blueprint. And Patrick Bateman's brother is the main character in Rules of Attraction.
Yes, I remember that. Yeah, I remember that people were like, James Vanderbeek is the brother of Patrick Bateman, and I was okay, sure.
Handsome white guy. That's fine. Yeah,
I guess. Cool. It's a very different film, very different story, but whatever. Yeah. But yeah, I guess it's all connected. It's all connected nowadays. But yeah, and it was interesting to see like some of the stuff that is described is quite shocking. Like there's a Clay is this kind of doesn't really care about anything or anyone, and is kind of floating through life. He's not particularly interested in Jamie Gertz's character Blair. He's not particularly interested in any of the men he's sleeping with. It's just
at
kind
all.
of
in fact, there were a couple of times when you read the book that you get them mixed up, and that's I as a reader. And I know he says their names, but it's also just like, oh, that's intentional, right? That's the skill that he had, though. Like you, as the reader, don't remember. You're like, wait, is that the same guy? It doesn't matter.
Yeah. But like you said, it's intentional because there's like, oh, it's another rich fucking, preppy white boy from LA with rich parents that can get anything they want and stuff. And and that's kind of the point. And then I know that they go into some very like dark places. They show some like snuff film, and they start kind of all getting very aroused by it, and it's this is sexy.
But then you discover at the end that that's real. That Rip and his cronies are making.
Oh, is it they created?
There's a final scene in the book. One of the end scenes in the book that Clay witnesses something he doesn't participate in, but he sees, and that's when you realize. And he even says something to Rip, but he's like, "What are you doing, man?" And they have this argument about it, and Clay leaves, and it's the highest moral ground that Clay takes in the whole book.
Yeah, I was going to say,
but it's not specifically said. Obviously, the snuff film they're watching, Rip made, but that is the moment when you realize
applied.
Rip is making the snuff films.
Right,
Rip is the worst.
Yeah, I won't describe what that incident is because it's quite graphic and very upsetting for a lot of people, I think. But just know what kind of book you're going in for if you're going to read that book.
And that's how Imperial Bedrooms ends.
Right.
Not with the snuff film, but with an equally disturbing thing. But this time now adult Clay, who in the book, the book starts with Clay saying, somebody stole my life. This asshole writer who kind of hung around me and two friends of mine in my life when I was in high school and right after college, wrote our life and stole our story, and his book got published, and I wanted to write a book, but it's about us and that guy, and then it got made into a movie, and the guy that played me was like this guy, and the guy that played the woman who played Blair doesn't look anything like her because Blair's a blonde or whatever, and then and he said they had some clown play Julian and whatever, but we all got invited to the premiere and this whole thing. So like it starts off with that, like, and it's Andrew McCarthy reading it, which is so again brilliant. But so you're going along with Clay and Clay's commentary on his life and how his life has changed because of the movie Less Than Zero and because of the book Less Than Zero and how accurate it was or wasn't. And then now, and so like this version of Clay, the book version of Clay, and then the movie version of Clay, who's like Boy Scout almost. And then this version of Clay, it's like just a reminder of where the depravity goes and how he's a fucking selfish prick. and he only looks out for himself. And that Clay, the regal Andrew McCarthy Boy Scout, that is some bullshit. And so it's really, so the book gets into that. And so just again, to drive the point home with Imperial Bedrooms, he just wanted you to remember, because the cover of Imperial Bedrooms, it says, is Clay wearing devil's horns. It's kind
of like the Dune thing, isn't it? The Frank Herbert thing, where he's like, this guy is not good. Paul Atreides is not a good guy. You still you still think he's a good guy. Let me write another series of novels or more novels to hammer home that point that this is not a good thing. He is not a good guy, and not having that guy having that kind of power is a bad thing. By the way. Yeah. Hammer over the head just until people get it, and that's why Dune is not Star Wars,
Yeah, well, and I'm not a big. I've never finished the Dune books. It is a fucking slog. And I've read Les Mis. There is 200 pages of Les Mis that describes this French sewer. I'm not making that up. I've read War and Peace. I've read.
I've read War and Peace.
I have. Listen,
you haven't read Dune.
Fuck Dune. That's what I'm saying. Come at me, Herbert Heads.
That's literally the joke, isn't it? Oh, it's not fucking War and Peace. Like it's not a big fucking book, and you've literally read War and Peace as opposed to that.
It's true. Anyway, all of that to say, but. Yes, sometimes it's and that's the thing. That's where I think like the criticism of Ellis is being a dick, but it's like one of my all-time favorite movies is Heathers. The villains are the villains. It's very clear who's bad. They do bad things. You are not supposed to like these people. No. And there's that difference and the difference between hero and protagonist. And I think that's what he was doing. And was it as deft? Does he become a better writer? Like if American Psycho was his first book, it wouldn't be very good.
Yeah,
he needed to write through these characters. He needed to write this. He needed to write Clay, and then he needed to write the other Bateman, whose name is eluding me right now, before he could get to Patrick. So then you're like, I figured out how to do it, because there's this sense of unreality, and that's where Imperial Bedrooms is like, no, this was real.
Yeah,
this isn't just right. There's not just a coke fever dream.
Yeah,
that happened.
Yeah, we've talked about it before, haven't we? Like with people, like you get very annoyed when people misinterpret, characters as kind of like you said, heroes, not protagonists, like Scarface or Patrick Bateman or
Homelander.
Homelander, yeah, exactly. Well, like Homelander, I'm baffled that people don't see it. Personally, I'm absolutely.
Star has had.
I understand like stuff like Scott Pilgrim. I understand if you don't see that, because he's doing all this cool shit and he's seemingly quite a nice guy, but he's a douchebag and he's dating a high schooler. They literally keep saying you're dating a high schooler, Right. But again, some people won't read that. What's that one I'm thinking of now? There's the romance one. Mark Webb directed. Joseph Gordon-Levitt. That one. Can't remember. The Zooey Deschanel one. What's that?
Oh, 500 Days of Summer.
Yeah. So like he's not a great guy, and
not at all.
Like Joseph Gordon-Levitt has come out and gone, guys, I think you need to rewatch that film and recontextualize that, because I'm not the hero, even though I'm the lead. I'm not the good guy in this situation.
He's
in
a terrible guy. Yeah,
absolutely, and that's it. And I think we still have that. I think we'll always have that problem. I think people will just read what they want to read, much like religious texts, I guess, to a good degree. People want to read what they want to read. Do you think, in some ways, that Clay is not maybe a self-insert, but do you think there is some similarities to Easton, Ellis, and Clay in the book anyway?
I do in the book. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think so. I mean, and again, based on just the kind of the hedonism that Easton Ellis lived, the hedonistic, because that's it. The movie is a little more nihilistic from Julian's perspective and from Rip's perspective, but the book is about hedonism, right? Yeah. It's like that song in Rent, right? Where they're just like they're singing that, which is the
La Vie Boheme.
Right. That I love that. That's such and it's so uplifting. But when you like listen to the lyrics, you're like, yikes. Maybe have a little bit.
Maybe people shouldn't get what they want. Maybe not. Not always.
Yeah. And so I feel like that's what this is. It's like that idea of hedonism, and because these are children of privilege, that's the thing. The hedonism exists because of who they are. And so like white privilege wasn't a phrase in 1985, but it might as well have been. And so I do think what I think is a really stark realization of Easton Ellis. And of course he read, I don't know this, I don't know Brett, but he read Kerouac. He read Burroughs. He read Salinger. He read those guys who did this before him. And I'm going to say guys because that's who did it. And not to say that, I mean, there's plenty of women who are writing amazing work, but he's clearly a dude writing about dudes doing shit, right? And so this, to me, Less Than Zero is his, and you mentioned Scott Pilgrim, Brian Lee O'Malley. That is also a spiritual sequel to all those books, right? To On the Road, To Catcher in the Rye. There's Scott Pilgrim. There's this like lead guy who thinks he's great and everybody around him is reminding him that he's not. But because he's white and the Scott is the only one who's poor. Right?
True.
But in Scott's case, it's still white privilege. And Scott's actually not poor. Remember, Scott can go home anytime he wants.
Yeah,
his parents are rich. His sister has a job. When you read the comics, Scott can go home anytime he wants. He just wants to sleep with Wallace. Live it, he needs a sugar daddy, and it's just like Wallace is so good to him for whatever stupid reason. Wallace clearly doesn't love him. Like he's not in love with it. Wallace is not into him. Wallace thinks Scott is gross. Like, but as he should. But I think so. Yeah. But again, there's that whole kind of male white privilege, and I think this book is a commentary on those books and on that sense of like, well, I could just get away with it because I'm white and I've got enough money to get away with whatever I can get away with, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
William S. Burroughs killed his wife, and that's actually in the book On the Road. Like the avatar for William S. Burroughs, like that all happens, and they're all like, well, we better make sure he gets away with it because he's William S. Burroughs. We don't want him to go to jail. You know what I mean? It's like just the craziest shit, and so to me, it's nihilism. But it's hedonism. It's that idea of getting
through
away
the lens, kind of through the lens of.
Correct. Yeah. Because I don't think this isn't Camus, right? It's not The Stranger. They don't hate everybody. They hate themselves.
Yes.
And that's where the hedonism comes in of like, I don't give a shit. I'm trying so desperately to feel anything.
Yeah, exactly. That numbness,
Yeah. And so I think that's where Easton Ellis was, because he's clearly, he's got a, he's bi, Easton Ellis is.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's 1985, right? You're in the middle of Reagan and AIDS, and you're a bi man, but you're also like all the drugs that they do and all the unprotected sex that they have with random people that you don't even remember who's who. It's like it's like the Doc Holliday thing, right? Like Doc Holliday in real life, and all of the portrayals of him, but in real life, he was a dentist. He got tuberculosis. He moved out west and hoped someone would kill him. But he was very religious. Like Doc Holliday in real life was very religious. So he didn't go out, he didn't kill himself, but he was trying to die. He was hoping someone would put him out of his misery. Yeah. And I really genuinely feel that's what this is. It's
like the Batman, isn't it? This would have been a good death, or this would be a good death. Like Dark Knight Returns kind of thing. Yeah.
Correct.
So it's kind of looking for that. So we've only got about an hour left, Tony. So
sorry.
I think we should talk about the film at some point.
Should we? Okay, sorry about that.
So they got the rights to this because it was a popular novel, the studio, 20th Century Fox. I think it's John Avner was the producer.
Who's done amazing shit.
Yeah, Risky Business comes to mind.
But he's worked on everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of the other producers have kind of worked on. But yeah, he's a very popular director, some of his own stuff as well. I think Fried Green Tomatoes was him.
Correct.
Some other bits and pieces. So they bought the script because it was popular. I don't think they read the book. They just were like, "This is getting a lot of kind of young people are really into this. I wonder what it's about." And then they brought on Marek Kinienska.
I cannot say it. I'm gonna
go with that. I'm gonna go with that. He's an English director. I think his family are Polish. He directed Another Country with Rupert Everett, which is kind of a spy, kind of Cold War-esque. Bisexual, LGBT kind of, again, another kind of nihilistic, moral ambivalence kind of tale. So they thought, it's perfect for this. And I can't remember his first name, but I think it's Knopfler. The original screenplay was written by, which was very close apparently to the novel, and that's what the actors were sold on, and everyone else. Again, Easton Ellis wishes he kind of did write it or did direct it or did something with it, but he had the
opportunity to direct it. But he couldn't.
Yeah, he was in school and he was doing. I think he was writing Rules of Attraction as well. So he was very busy, and I think he was quite happy to take the money and run.
Correct.
And so they get the book and they go, "Oh fuck!" Us, the studio executives, have these children right now.
We do, yes.
And we hope they are not like this and doing these things. And we don't want to celebrate or give them ideas or acknowledge that this might be going on. We're very uncomfortable by that idea. So let's absolutely just destroy and throw out almost everything about this. Clay is no longer bi. It's not a stream of consciousness. It's more a morality tale about heavy kind of, like you said, hedonism and the drug use. And Clay is our kind of moral, moral champion here. And he has to, say, oh, well, you're doing drugs and that's bad. Drugs are bad.
There's a moment early on when he first runs into Rip. And he and he's like, hey, you want a bump? And he's like, nah. And the only acknowledgement is Rip puts the vial in his coat pocket and pats it and says, old habits die hard.
Yeah.
That's the only moment that we acknowledge that other version of Clay. And that's almost like a wink to the studio executives. Like, look at Clay went to college and got clean all on his own. He didn't need rehab or anything.
He's educated. He's
right.
a good boy. He's studying.
Right.
And I think the main problem with this film, again, this is a Secret Defenders. You're not here to defend it.
Right.
We're just here to kind of discuss it. It was something of interest to you, and I was like, absolutely, we can talk about this, and it fits the theme of the month. But for me, the problem is it's the bastard child of two bastards, basically. You can't, and
it doesn't even have a mommy.
No, exactly. And it's two things that do not go together. It's, chalk and cheese. And none of them is really working. Like you can't have your cake and eat it kind of thing. It's not gonna. You can't have this moral tale while still because it absolutely feels like there's two scripts here that have been Frankenstein together. And one of the main things you pointed out, the soundtrack. I think the soundtrack is amazing. I think it is one of the best kind of soundtracks. Like every song that came out was like yes, 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 banger, 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 banger. And I was like, yeah, soundtrack still amazing. I also think the cinematography and the lighting is especially good.
It's
I think the
outrageous.
movie is gorgeous.
It
absolutely
is because,
gorgeous.
and the way they shoot outside in the dark, it's not like obviously lit in a way that, like, you see a movie, then it's like. Mr. Science Theater makes fun of those, and suddenly it's daytime because it's lit so poorly. And these are like, you can tell somehow they managed to light it so you can tell it's dark, but you can see everybody in the way you would see them in the dark. Not all of a sudden like the way we both have lights right on our faces right now. You're like reflections on our glasses. You're like clearly, it's I don't know, that lighting director, king. Or queen, whoever did it, amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree. So, yeah, for me, that are, and the one thing I will take away, and I think is superb, is Robert Downey Jr.'s performance. Say what you will about the other actors or the other characters, he fucking playing it on every level. He recently, I think he did a couple of interviews about kind of his career, and I think it might have been for Vanity Fair where they go through their kind of back catalogue of films and they talk about them and what they did. And they said that Kiniewska said, right, everyone shut up, listen, Robert's going to deliver something that's really extraordinary right now for us. So let's pay attention, give him the respect and time that he needs. And let him go, and that gave him a real kind of like I guess validation. I guess is the best word for it, as a performer, as an actor, as a creator. And that was the tennis court scene where Julian has kind of had a really bad kind of come down. He's come off, he's kind of not OD'd, but he's kind of had a real bad night of it, and he's got vomit and he's got the kind of sweats and shaking and and he's had to kind of come off it. And he goes and he goes to his dad, and I remembered him being asking for money, but actually it's not him asking for money. It's asking him just to stay at his dad's house for one night. That's all he wants. And again, they've had this argument. They've fallen out. He's stolen. They've fought. No longer lives with his dad. And yeah, I thought it was an absolutely beautiful scene. Played such fragility and such charm and such power that I think if you did a back to the filmography, on Robert Downey Jr., for me, this would be an absolute must-see, compulsory.
100%. Because what I said to Lee when I don't think she's ever seen this, when I said about watching it, is you just feel bad for everybody else because they are in this movie with him. That's the thing that is exciting for them. And in that interview that Andrew McCarthy did with Brett, he was like, he calls him Bobby, which I love. Yeah. That they've been friends forever, and he calls him Bobby. But he says, he's so good. But he was actually all whacked out. Like he was.
Well, Downey said that this was the Ghost of Christmas Future, because this is really before, again, it was probably ongoing at the time, or it was beginning. Yeah. And he says, this is what I turned into, unfortunately.
Yeah, he absolutely did. And he kills it. And it's outrageous because everybody's fine. Nobody's bad. There's not one bad performance in the film, really. But he's so good. It's like, I'm sorry you got to be in this movie. Like, I'm sorry you got to deal with him.
I don't think there's bad performances. I think there's bad writing and maybe bad casting.
Yeah, Jamie is the problem.
I think Jamie Gertz, again, stunning, beautiful. Same year Lost Boys came out. I love Lost Boys. She was absolutely, kind of this kind of almost like Romani kind of vampire girl, really sexy, really, big hair, So I absolutely was like, besotted with her. And but in this, I don't think she's actually she's one of like the richest actors ever.
Really?
Yeah, I think she's a multimillionaire, billionaire. It was not through acting. She married a guy when she was doing really well and he wasn't, and then he made some business deals, and now she is still married to him, and she's now like one of the she still acts and still kind of does bits and pieces, but I think people got upset because people were like, you married him for the money, but actually she was like, no, I had the money.
I was
at the time.
Rich. Yeah.
Then I elevated him to
right. Her and now we're sharing his ideas.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome. Good for her. Yeah, I agree with you about everything. Yeah, I mean, she is. I love the Lost Boys as well. Yeah, sure. She's not Blair. The funny thing is Heather McNamara is in this. The woman who plays Heather McNamara, the blonde, the cheerleader Heather. She's in this.
Yeah.
Honestly, Heather Chandler, the woman who unfortunately passed away, I can't think of her name is eluding me right now. She should have played Blair. The original, if you've seen Heather's.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, the original red Heather, the Heather who dies. That's
I know her. Yeah.
That's an actor like that. Like this is like Jamie Gertz is all the things, but it's like if you put Ione Skye in this, what are you doing? Like this is not.
Yeah,
there's
exactly.
A certain.
Too innocent. Too innocent.
It just does not work. And Blair isn't an innocent.
No.
Blair's a guilty party in all of it, and to have her have to play this whatever weird sex kitten thing that Blair in the book 100% is, but this it just does not work. It's not the role made for her. So again, she's given it her all, but like you said, she signed on for a different
script,
thing.
A different,
and so
did McCarthy.
Yeah.
Like they all did. Yeah. And I think the only thing that works for me is the arc of Downey Jr. I will say the whole premise is that Blair. So you've got this opening scene in high school, which was a reshoot.
Oh, right. That was a reshoot. Right. That was not.
But I actually think that works because I think otherwise you're coming in very cold. You've got the Blair calling Clay up and you're going straight into Hollywood. And Clay's like smiling at Hollywood. And I don't think Clay in the book would want to go back.
To be home.
Yeah, he's like, oh, look at all the sights of Hollywood, and Beverly Hills and stuff. Oh, look at that.
They needed to cut it. If I'm directing the film, I'm doing the taxi ride, but he's miserable, and you're looking at all the glory. Yeah. Like show all those same establishing
show all
shots.
Show the people being happy, but he's miserable. I think.
Right. Yeah. Do the first time Axel goes to Beverly Hills.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Right. He's in shock. This is like he's in dismay while all these things are happening. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's how you do it. But yeah, we have this opening thing. It kind of sets up everything that, Julian's going to do borrowed money from his dad to start a record company. That's failed. Andrew McCarthy's character Clay goes off to college. Blair decides to stay. They end up, Julian and him end up sleeping together, which it doesn't feel like that would happen. I don't know.
Julian and Blair would?
Yeah, it kind of felt, it just didn't didn't really feel like that they would get together. I don't know, but yeah, it felt a bit forced, that. And then he finds them, and then he goes back to college, and then she calls him back and says, Julian, come and see me, I want to see you. But then she goes, you've got to speak to Julian, you've got to speak to Julian, you've got to speak to Julian. And there's about 3 or 4 scenes where like they rock up and they go like, we've got to find Julian, we've got to find Julian. They go up to Julian and are like, you okay? And he goes, yeah, I'm fine, he's clearly a bit of a mess. And then they go, right, I've got to go, bye.
I know. What the fuck?
I'm like, the whole point of you is like, you've got to speak to him, you've got to talk to him. And they're like, he's fine, whatever. And again, there is a bit of that ambivalence when he comes in. He goes, he's fine. He's been doing drugs since he was 12, and it's no different. And they're like, no, it is different. It is different. But there's like 3 or 4 scenes where I'm like, stay a bit longer. Like, you literally got here 2 minutes ago. Now you're leaving.
When they go find him, there's a moment where he's been sleeping on a rock
on the beach. Yeah.
And they go out there, and then he
climb up this rock
up there, and he says like, "All right, I gotta go." And he's like, "You're always going," and he says, "Somebody has to." And I'm like, "What is that line? What is that?" And that's like, it's funny, like thinking I probably haven't watched this in 15, 20 years, and again, like, so I probably haven't watched it into like full adulthood. I probably haven't watched it since I've had children. But like, there's so many funny things, like especially when you're thinking of it critically, like what are Dan? Why did I say Dan? I wanted to tell Dan I wanted to watch this.
Me, I'll watch anything.
I know.
I think it's interesting to talk about. Like, I don't feel like you've punished me by watching.
Okay, good.
I don't like, because I did enjoy a lot of it, and I think visually, again, it's very, very arresting, and so the shot composition, cinematography, like I said. But yeah, like, you wouldn't write in your books, you would not write a scene of a character going up to somebody and then just going, "You okay? Yeah, I'm good. Bye."
Right, especially if that was your mission. If it's like, if Clay is just like at the bar and Julian rolls up and and it's an awkward, you didn't expect to see you, and he looks a little strung out, and then they're like, "You all right?" He's like, "Fine." You're like, "That's weird." That's different because it's a one-off. But right, they're deliberately. There's like, and I know it's just
several times. They do it at the park when he's on the park bench. They find him on the park bench. They go, "Oh, are you okay? That was a bit of a heavy night." He's like, "Yeah, you're gonna be okay." And then he's applying eyeliner, guy liner, or whatever.
Yeah.
And then he's like, "Right, I'm gonna go." I'm just like,
yeah,
but why? Like, why have we had this scene? Like, why does this? Why do we need? It doesn't say or do anything. It's to kind of, I guess it's to kind of make Clay seem like he cares, like, more than he does.
That's what it is. It's so that you're on Clay's side. Well, there's two. What I realized this time, and again, watching it the first time at 15, and like the balls on them to kill the main character, the courage. Like, some of my favorite things writers do are have the courage to kill somebody off. And not that I'm rooting for their death, but like that takes courage to not do, like, listen, now, to be fair, I love the end of True Romance, but I'm also
Tony, you're speaking my language. It's my favorite film. Easy.
I love that film.
And I know you're not a Tarantino guy as well.
I'm not, but I like that version because you know why I like that one? Because if Tarantino did it, he would have played the Gary Oldman character.
Yeah, probably.
And that would have been really bad.
At least it wouldn't have been an Australian accent like in 100%. Django.
Right. But he might, and maybe he would have played Elvis. Maybe if Tarantino had directed it, he would have played the Val Kilmer.
And Tony Scott changed the ending as well.
Well, that's what I was just getting ready to say. The ending, the original ending, right? Obviously, Clarence doesn't make it.
No, and then shot in the face.
Shot in the face. But he, okay. So in that particular case, but you are left, I believe Tony Scott gives us room to decide if she's imagining that.
Sure, yeah.
There's a magical quality that is in her mind.
Yeah, and he is showing her a Nick Fury or Sergeant Fury comic earlier on, which again kind of explains the old eye patch as well.
Exactly. Right. So I believe there's enough magical realism with Elvis, but then also at the end that Tony Scott lets you believe that this is in her head and that he did not make it. But if you want to say Clarence made it, great. Either way, I love that movie. God damn, it's so great. Yeah. You're so cool. Everybody in the world wants that napkin slipped to them at some point in time. Somebody say you're. But so anyway, so that ending, that's what I was getting to, is like, I feel okay with that, but it would have been shocking to kill Clarence at the end, and you'd be okay with that. So to me, I feel like, okay, that was great. But then now as an adult, as a 51-year-old, as opposed to a 15-year-old, and we're like, oh, wow, this was a just say no ending.
Oh, absolutely.
This was not courage. This was like, and here's the other thing. In my mind, in the original 15-year-old version of my brain, it ends with him dead on the street. There's no coda with them talking about how tough Julian was as a kid. My brain canon blocked off that bullshit sitting on the bench ending, because I feel like that even makes it more of a just say no. Whereas if he just dies
on the streets, no one's going to love you, and you're going to vomit on yourself, and you're dead.
Right. But if he just died in the car and that's the fade out, that's the ending that I thought it was. Isn't that funny? I forgot about that other ending.
No, because I wasn't sure if I feel like I forgot that he died and then remembered. But then when he did die, I was kind of like, wait, is that it? He just kind of flops and that's it. Like he's already and there's no real build up to him dying. Like we see he tries to get clean. He goes back to Rip and, he
smokes crack again.
Smokes some crack cocaine. And then he's forced to do, unspeakable things. Another thing, again, I feel like, again, they're saying like Clay's conservative family values and him having sex with Jamie Gertz cures her of all of her drugs.
His magical penis.
Yeah,
yes.
even though the sex scenes are fucking awful.
They're
some of the worst,
uncomfortable.
Some of the worst fucking sex. They were like, clearly none of them wanted to get naked at all, or they had I was like, I don't think anyone has had that much sex with that many clothes on at any point in history. I don't believe it. I just don't understand why that would be. But again, it's
the one up against the wall at the holiday party. Okay, because you're
that
you're
I
like
didn't
sneaking
mind.
off.
Yeah, that I didn't mind because I liked the kind of dichotomy between the family Christmas, and they're trying to hold it together. The dad and the new girlfriend are there. The mum's there. The former wife is there drinking, and that's kind of what they consider like Christmas and family values. But then these young people have their own idea of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I didn't mind that so much, but
it still was uncomfortable.
Oh, absolutely.
You realize how much neither of them like this. Neither of them wanted to do. I'm sure that is not a scene.
No,
they wanted to do.
Oh, like Jamie Gertz does not look like, I don't think either of them look particularly turned on or sexy or comfortable.
And again, I think acting is a weird job. And I would say this. I mean, you are an actor. You've made out with
I've done sex scenes.
You have done sex scenes.
The only sex scene I've done is a gay sex scene.
Right,
I've done a sex scene.
So it's an interesting job, is what I say. And when I watch stuff, and especially when you're watching like there's lots of like really like everybody's like clearly the actors aren't like Monsters Ball. We'll take Monsters Ball as a good example. Like what the fuck, that movie? What seriously? They're like, what the hell is going on? and like that is a weird job. Like those two, Billy Bob and Halle Berry, got to roll up and be completely naked and simulate sex in it's only because of weird camera angles that they didn't have to have sex in some of those scenes. You're like, what the fuck? Acting is weird. Okay. So at least you could say in this particular case, it was not, while they were uncomfortable and clearly not enjoying themselves, at least they didn't also have to be naked while doing it.
True. But again, it's the film like going, the novel's got a lot of sex in it. Here's some sex. Not very sexy or interesting. Yeah. Again, giving you with one hand and kind of taking it away. And Bret Easton Ellis, like you said, hated the adaptation, but did soften to it later on because he went, it's not my book, it's not my characters. It's like you said, it's in name alone, characters in name alone, location in name alone, title in name alone. But he did soften to it. And like we said, we both listened to the Bret Easton Ellis podcast when Andrew McCarthy comes on and talks to him, which was very interesting. I like the story. It was a
great talk. Yeah.
I like the story about and his feelings on method acting because I've gone on the record say how much I'm not a fan. And he had a big bust up with Vincent D'Onofrio on Full Metal Jacket, and then on Law and Order as well. Yeah. Really good story. Really good story.
It was great. Well, because he said, and I agree. Like my favorite story, right? Of course, is Sir Laurence Olivier saying to Dustin, why don't you try to act?
Because he was doing, it was marathon
running laps. Yeah,
he did a lap of the whole lake twice, and then stopped to do the scene, and he was like, "Why don't you just pretend, just rush?" That's what we do best.
See, but this is the problem. Like here's the perfect example. Like this movie is a bunch of actors acting. They roll up. James Spader, from what I understand, is a lovely person, but he plays such a villain, right? He's so good. as a villain. And so you say, because obviously people like him, he continues to get work. Whereas like people who are huge dicks but are super talented at you, Ed Norton, you don't get work because nobody likes to work with you because you're a huge dick. Okay,
exactly. There's that divide between being really talented, but also, you know, and I actually got a lot of my acting jobs more so off, oh, Dan's a nice guy, I can work with him, you know, he's very chill. You know, I don't think I'm the world's greatest actor, but it doesn't help to be friendly and nice and you know, and not problematic as well in a lot of ways.
Act.
Yeah.
And then say, like you said, the director said, Robert's going to do something amazing.
Yeah.
And then he did it. So he's probably just standing around all jacked up, and then he had to bring it down. And now that scene is bullshit because the parents are like Charlie Brown's parents in the books. They're not in the right. But in the movie, you know, like you said it perfectly though, the studio execs were like, these boomers got to have something to say. They got to take a moral high ground. Although the scene where Blair goes to visit her dad and his teenage girlfriend comes out, so at least they gave a little bit there.
Yeah, and the uncle is quite, you know, there's a hypocrisy there, I think.
Correct.
I feel.
Because he says you want to give him up.
Yeah, exactly. And you're my favorite nephew, but I can't give it you because your dad is, you know, the moral kind of high ground in this film.
But everybody acts their ass off. And again, I agree. Jamie Gertz, it's not a bad performance. It's a bit like they don't know and we don't know what it looks like in the edit. We don't have any idea
exactly.
what
exactly.
But you're right. There are some really, really weird, uncomfortable sex scenes. And again, you need to have like at least some chemistry with people. Like,
absolutely.
If you don't, that's a problem. You know, when two actors clearly hate each other and don't want to be there and aren't having any fun, that's not fun. It comes through. And I feel like and we don't know the order they shot this, but by the time they got to that scene, the two of them look exhausted. And that's not supposed to be the point in the movie where they're exhausted with each other. Like Blair, and this is your second time watching?
Yes. Yeah, second time.
So it sounds like you agree. Like there's nothing about Blair and Clay and Blair that you think they like each other.
Yeah, absolutely.
They belong together. They're a one true pair. So if you are script doctoring it as a professional actor or you're directing it, and you still need to justify, like Blair still calls him up, do you stick with the ruse? Like, does that work better that she calls him up pretending she wants to make up with him, but then it is still manhunt for Julian instead of the stupid love triangle? Does that work better?
I think the love triangle doesn't work for me. Like they make it like there's only a few kind of throwaway lines to do with it. I think if you took that out and it was all about kind of because he gets there and she's very awkward with him. It's not like he's like, oh, I'm here to see you. You know, you asked me to see you. And you know, and even Rip, James Spader's character, is like, she's upstairs. He knows exactly why he's here and what he's doing. So yeah, it's very odd. But yeah, I don't think it added anything. But I think you could still use that as the ruse to get there. I think you can get that point across.
The ruse works, but then once they're together, they don't touch. And then it's 1986, it's 1987. Could you, even if you're not going to be comfortable with the two boys kissing, because like,
I was going to talk about
would you at least have Clay, would you at least allude to that Clay's going to be with a boy, like holding hands, bumping, oh, I see you're back together with Trent or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think you have to. I think you've got to go whole hog with it. Speaking of Tarantino, apparently he was going to remake it at one point, or as a TV show or something.
There was a pilot made, and the kid from Wolves, as we were just talking about, he plays the Clay character. I've never seen it. Nobody's seen it. It didn't get picked up, but there was a pilot shot for a miniseries.
You know what? I've not seen the show, but it makes me think of Euphoria,
which I've never seen either.
Yeah. So from what I understand, it's, you know, high school kids, you know, having issues and problems, and again, there's a lot of complaints about it being over sexualized, and you know,
because teenagers don't have sex apparently.
Yeah,
is that what we're pretending? Okay.
I think it's problematic, maybe in the way it's depicted. I think
sure,
people
too glamorous. Yeah,
maybe and go. Yeah, but again, I've not seen the show, so I can't really comment.
Can't speak to it.
But from what I hear about it, it sounds like that's what this would be if they made it properly or embrace the source material, and that's what they wanted it to be. But yeah, like scenes with her like chucking the cocaine down the sink and stuff, I was like, pull the other one, fucking hell, like just such.
And for her to say, call a plumber, they're like, what a waste, and she says, call a plumber.
I was just like,
And it's funny, there's a line, one of my all-time favorite lines in Heathers when they say, "What a waste. Oh, the humanity." That like runs through the whole thing. So that would have been funny to me if that would have been, I mean, they were
If that was
out.
her, if that was her playing it,
right.
yeah, that would be funny. But I was going to say this as well, like, again, these kind of conservative values coming through and like kind of hammering it home. And again, Clay is the kind of spokesperson for those kind of values, quote unquote. Like, drugs are bad, and it's very much like a don't do this. And look, Robert Downey Jr. is in the guy. Yeah,
but
and then
the
hot girl's doing it a little bit, but I can have sex with her, and now my magic penis has cured her drug addiction. And my family values, and come on, like he wants everybody to go to school. Like every 5 minutes is like, let's get to school. Come with me to school. I was like, I'm sure, you're a teacher, Tony. I'm sure it takes a lot more preparation and communication with the school to have somebody go to that school. You can't just bring people in and be like, this is okay.
He's in New Hampshire, so we're assuming he's at an Ivy.
Or
some other sort of like private school. So, but the best line in the whole movie, I mean, there's so many great things that Robert Downey Jr. does. He's like, "Do I look like I'm ready for homework?"
Yeah, that's a great line. I love that.
That is a soul crusher. And it's almost like I feel it's Robert Downey Jr. not just saying, it's not Julian saying it to Clay. It's Robert Downey Jr. saying it to the fucking script.
Yeah, yeah, I think so.
Come on.
I love that little scene with him and I think it's Clay's younger sister.
Yeah. Oh God.
So
he's such a charmer. He's so great, right?
And you're seeing that kind of Downey Jr. charm that would come to the fore in kind of Iron Man and stuff like that. But it's there. You can see the inklings of it and the beginnings of it. And I thought
you wonder how much of that was them riffing.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. It feels like that. It feels like them riffing. Yeah,
yeah.
Absolutely.
And he was so talented that he knew to give that girl. She was like 12, 10, whatever. He knew to give her space to respond.
There's a massive delay for her to respond, but or a pregnant pause or a pincer pause as we call it. But I like that because it felt like natural. It didn't feel like with a lot of like Iron Man's a good example of very fast, witty dialogue, like bam, 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 improvised dialogue. And this felt like genuine, patient improvising and fun and playful.
And he's known her whole life. Yeah, that's the thing. Like she knows him as I mean, not
Uncle Julian,
right? But right, exactly.
Yeah,
she thinks of him as Uncle Julian. So she's happy to keep the secret, right?
Yeah,
she's happy to not tell. Like she's
game.
He's just
it's a game.
Fun.
Stealing the jewelry is a game.
Is a fun game with Julian, because she gets it, or she thinks he's just going to do something. So we don't see it; it happens off screen. But she's all dressed up. But you assume he puts it on, right?
Yeah.
He plays dress up with her to convince her to do the thing. Yeah, no, that is actually a really good scene, and it's never gross.
No,
it's always smart.
I think it's implied that he would do something dangerous or icky or something, but it's not. It's absolutely not.
Sweet.
That,
yeah, I mean, he's stealing from his friend's mother.
Yeah, which is bad, which is icky in a sense.
He would never touch that little girl whom he loves.
No, but I think it does imply that he's out of control, so he could do things. And again, he's doing, Rip, who is his dealer. He's in 50 grand's worth of debt with James Spader's character. Ultron and Robert Downey Jr. having issues again.
Shocking.
I know, right?
I love that. Yeah, you posted that the other day, didn't you? That was great.
I did, yeah. They actually they worked on. I think it was Age of Ultron. They reunited for. So they did Tough Turf. I don't know if you've seen that one. That feels like one that's in your kind of wheelhouse.
That name sounds vaguely familiar. I bet I have. I bet if it came on, I'm like, of course.
I feel like it's a punk director as well, like a female punk director.
Nice. All right.
But now you've got some research to do.
100%.
Tough Turf, and it's Tough TUFF.
FF. Yes. Absolutely. I've seen that. Okay.
Oh, I'm sure you have. I'm sure you have.
Okay. That triggered it right there.
That's because of the
probably one time, like on TV at 3 a.m, but now I need to see it. Yeah.
I think I might even watch it. But yeah. And then they did this, and then they reunited years later on Iron Man, on Avengers: Age of Ultron, which I think is an underrated MCU film for my money. I can understand people's issues
because of Spader's voice.
Oh, absolutely. I think Ultron is, for me, one of, if not the best villains in all of the MCU. And supposedly, spoilers, but they may be bringing him back, which I think is a good move.
With Spader's voice?
Oh, yeah, Spader's coming back, yeah. Because he did an article recently where he said reuniting with Robert Downey Jr., who was somebody he kind of took under his wing because he's a little bit older. He said he described it as divine reuniting, which I thought was really
nice.
sweet as well.
Yeah.
And then I
Because
think
again, everybody loves James Spader. He seems like such a nice guy, but he plays such a prick. He's so good.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
And Andrew McCarthy, he was in quite a few films and stuff with Spader. So he was in Mannequin with Spader. He was in Pretty in Pink with Spader.
Pretty in Pink, of course, yeah.
And then he was in this. And then, I don't know if you watched The Blacklist.
I did not, but didn't he direct some episodes of The Blacklist?
He did. Not only did he direct some episodes, it's revealed that the mysterious pilot of Spader's character, they keep referring to his private pilot. He's this kind of international criminal, Spader, with a blacklist that he reveals to the FBI or CIA, so they can go after the worst people than him. He has a pilot you never see, but you always hear about, and then it's revealed, I think, in 2023, that it was Andrew McCarthy. He played the mysterious pilot,
and he's in it. He's in it for an episode.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. That's very cool. I wonder if it's just because he was around directing the episode,
probably,
so it was just easy for him. They're like, want to jump in?
But but I thought it's a nice little kind of friendly kind of
love
connection.
that. Yeah, and they seem to be really good friends.
Yeah,
well,
exactly.
I mean, did you end up watching Bratz?
I did, yeah. I watched the documentary. I know our mutual friend Jack didn't particularly take to the documentary, but I thought it was fine. It's fine.
Yeah, I thought we had a good time. I mean, I feel like
it probably would have made a better podcast series, maybe.
It's based. I read the book, Bratz.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Yeah. And so while he was making the book, that's how the documentary came to be.
Yeah,
so the documentary, so it's a little. I do feel like he needed a few more bodies, but I think the most important
Molly Ringwald and Judd Nelson, but they didn't want to do it.
Judd appears at the end, right? And the final phone call.
Yeah, well, Tony, he says Judd. And then it cuts. So I don't know if that is Judd.
No.
That could just be him holding his phone, going Judd.
Yeah, I thought that was really well. I thought that
and then they do the Bender. Don't you forget about me.
Yeah,
Breakfast Club
I think they needed Molly, and just to have the conversation with Anthony.
Yes, yeah.
I feel
Michael
and
Hall.
I know because he was left out of the Brat Pack stuff because he was an actual teenager.
It's weird as well because I always thought it was like a thing, like a label, like a set group of people, and then there's all these people going, "Oh, I wasn't really a Brat Packer or part of that," but it was a kind of, I don't know, pejorative term for all of the young up-and-coming Hollywood stars.
But they left Anthony out of it because he was still a minor. When you read that, when you watch the documentary, it's implied that guy doesn't say it. He's like, you were all adults.
I see.
And so, but when you go like,
so he was a literal brat. He was a literal.
Yeah, brat. Anthony, because Anthony was a real. He plays his own age. Like when he's a kid. So when he's in Pretty in Pink, or in
he is that age.
He's the age in 16 Candles. He's only 15, and you can see in those scenes where he's with Cusack, who's clearly 25, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, right, okay, yeah. So, but yeah, I do think that hurt not having the two of them in it. Because it would have been an interesting conversation to hear at least what Anthony had to say as a kid who was left out of it.
Yeah,
because his parents were there. Yeah,
it's obviously the three men were in so Judd Nelson, Rob Lowe, Emilio Estevez were in the article, so they're definitely
correct. They're in it
the Brat Pack. But then obviously St. Elmo's Fire came out, and they were all in it.
Yeah, so Demi was there. Yeah.
So that makes a lot of sense that they connect the two dots together and those characters, and so I get why. But it was kind of more of just a general term about But it was I found it interesting, but I don't think it's a perfect documentary, but I enjoyed watching it, and it kind of filled in the gaps a little bit for this as well. Because this
I think it was interesting for this too, because this film. So there's a movie that RDJ does with Molly Ringwald called The Pickup Artist.
Yes,
which I actually think is an underrated little gem.
Okay,
she plays.
Maybe another
have you ever
podcast.
Seen it?
Maybe another podcast.
She plays against type in that one, and so people don't like it because he's just playing him, but she's also playing him. There's a lot of cons happening in there. She's not a bad actor. Like, I don't think Molly Ringwald is a bad actor at all in any stretch of the imagination. But like she got because she's the John Hughes girl and what all of that stuff. So, and she looks how she looks, right? So it's hard not to reconcile. That's what she looks like, a kid all the time. But I actually think The Pickup Artist was really an interesting picture. So they kept trying to do those movies. Anthony Michael Hall and Robert Downey Jr. did Johnny Be Good, which is another really kind of funny, like they're going off to college, like Anthony Michael Hall's the football
This is Johnny Be Bad, I think.
Right. Yeah. But all these movies they do where they're trying so hard to break the image, but they keep being stuck together. And again, I think where Spader, because with Spader, he keeps showing up in these movies, but he's always like,
if they did,
he never played. Yeah.
if Andrew McCarthy signed on to do the script originally as it was, a more faithful adaptation, I can see why he would do it to break away from that
Exactly.
mold.
And then you make him this other version of Clay, and he's like, God damn it, these two guys again get to do the stuff that I was trying desperately to do.
I will say this about McCarthy, there is a kind of like a casual coolness, or a kind of, again, and not maybe a moral, aloof, I think is a good word. Not a moral ambivalence, but maybe just a general like, yeah, fair enough, whatever. Yeah, kind of, I don't know, malaise or whatever you want to call it, but just a general like, yeah, things are, I'm doing things, I'm alive, things are happening. Some of them good, some of them bad, but it's all right.
Yeah, and I feel like he can't act like he plays one of the disaffected husbands in the Joylette Club, and and he's good. He knows how to roll up and play. I think he's a fine actor. I think his problem, just like everybody in this movie's problem, is he's constantly around these people who are doing award-winning performances, and you're the straight man. You're holding that. Straight man's a hard job. People, you that's a tough role. Like it's easy for Lucy to look great because Ricky's the straight man, right? I mean, and now to be fair, Lucille Ball's a fucking genius. So I'm not trying to say she's only funny because Ricky Ricardo, but like that's hard too. He doesn't get to laugh at her,
even though it's hilarious, and
Andrew McCarthy doesn't get to react to Robert. He had like the stuff that Robert Downey Jr. is doing. He can't just be like slack jawed, like holy shit. He's got to like hold it together. So I do think. Again, that's where I come back to there's some really good, I think there's some good performances here. Again, I feel bad for Jamie Gertz, but I do think she did the best with what she could. I do think overall, I feel like this is a film that if you wanted to explain to somebody propaganda filmmaking, this would be an excellent thing to show them. I think it would be really fascinating to go, okay, watch this movie. What's the message? Like, and I think it would, if you don't walk away from it saying, "Oh, drugs are bad," right?
This is another thing I meant to bring up earlier. Yeah. It also frames homosexuality as bad.
And I don't appreciate that at all.
Yeah, I don't, and I think that's part of the studio changes as well, because again, the book is about, again, moral ambivalence and hedonism and everything like that, but it's not. It doesn't indicate that being gay or bisexual is bad. It's all the other stuff that's around that and around those people.
Correct.
It's bad.
Yeah.
But here, the villains are bad. They are drug pushers. They are pimping out their junkies and putting them in situations where they're being harmed, molested, raped, whatever you want to call it. They're forcing them into dangerous situations. They're threatening them with violence. They are coming into people's homes that are not really related to that. Like Spader's saying you're not involved. Again, he's kind of, he's the extreme end of the moral ambivalence and the nihilism.
Right.
It's like, don't get involved. Why are you bothered? Who gives a fuck? They're just a junkie. I'm just selling. And again, they set his character. I think he's given a very good performance as well, actually. The amount of time we do have with him, again, a lot of it's a bit repetitive, like, come on, but he's a drug dealer and he's got to get Downey hooked again. And yeah, so I didn't appreciate that. And again, it's kind of initially implied. They don't say outright initially. They say, you're just going to go meet some people, Robert Downey Jr., Julian.
Yeah.
And
they're
you're
very
just going to...
nice.
Yeah. And it's only later when McCarthy comes in. And McCarthy's reaction to him is kind of, again, I think he's frustrated because he's clearly being forced to do that for money and for the drugs.
Right.
And he's been trying to get clean. So there's a bit of that in there. But I think it's coded with a bit of like homophobia as well. I think there's something in there saying, not only can I not believe that, I can't believe that you did drugs and you're back and you went to that guy who's putting you in danger and putting you in this situation. I think there's a flavor of homophobia in there as well. Like, I can't believe this has led you to be gay, which right. Is kind of, I think, is problematic within the film.
I agree. I agree completely. And it's what's interesting in the book, Clay, who's clearly bi and who just is, Clay's assumption is everybody is. Like, Clay's assumption in the book, and it's not said, but Clay's assumption is everybody's banging everybody.
Yeah,
that's Clay's.
But that's the world he lives in, isn't it?
Correct. So he assumes that Blair hooks up with women, and that people have threesomes or whatever, and that's whatever anybody wants to do is what they do. Like, that's how he feels. Like one morning he wakes up in a guy's bed and is worried he's putting on his underwear. Because
Right.
it's so interchangeable. Like he just doesn't even remember where he is. It's Tuesday morning and he's hungover and like walking out and he just banged this dude and he has no idea. He just wants to make sure he's got, his biggest concern is putting on his own underwear. That's the thing. Like not like, oh my God, I had sex with this boy. It's like, it's just what happened. I need to make sure I get on my underwear. Like, so he's been in that. So he's just real cash about it. But there is one line like shortly after that where he says something, he drops an F-bomb and not fuck about some other boys.
Wow.
Clay does.
Okay.
So there is a bit, so not to defend, because I agree with everything that you just said, but there's this weird thing about Clay that's like, everybody's bi, but these guys are just gay.
Right.
That's somehow
okay.
bad. Like, it's so weird. It's such a weird thing. But again, it goes back to that self-hate
sure. Yeah.
thing
it's coming out in the...
I agree, because they clearly code Rip and his henchman Bill as gay guys. Like
absolutely.
Bill, the guy who plays Bill is playing him super gay, which is fine because he is in the book, and that's right. So of course,
that's what they signed up to do. They signed up to play these characters in in a faithful adaptation.
Right. So he's a gay guy who gets boys and young men to have sex with older men who are in the closet, and that is actually very clear. And then in Imperial Bedrooms, you learn Julian picks up that mental. Julian becomes a pimp at the end and a bit of a human trafficker.
Oh, fucking hell.
And it's, he doesn't consider it human trafficking. They don't say it out loud. He's like, well, they came here to act and they're lost and they need money. That's what Julian says to Clay.
Exactly.
He's like, yeah. So it's like,
it's their fault, really. It's their fault.
It's their fault, really, for being like young and hot and unemployed.
And I think that's the thing with LA, isn't it? That's the idea is that people are here to find their fortune, but they fall very hard. And and because everyone's looking for the American dream or the Hollywood dream, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, and because Julian did it in the book, that part's the same, right? And there's actually a scene in the book where that break-in scene, right, where that happens. In the book, Julian has sex with that guy, and Clay's there.
Right.
That's part of the deal to get him even. To get Julian's debt cleared,
Rip
demands that Clay sits and watch because the guy paid to have somebody watch. And so normally it would be Bill or Rip who watches, but they force Clay to watch Julian have sex with this guy, and that's how his debt gets cleared.
Right. Wow.
So that scene again, and Clay's obviously had sex with Ben, so he's not. The thing that's upsetting to him is that his friend Julian is being, it's
forced
a money
to do
thing.
something he doesn't want to do.
Yeah, exactly. Because and Clay couldn't do it. It's not like he wants to. He has to have sex with Julian while you watch, not the other way around, right? So that's the icky part. But it's never like two men having sex is a problem. The problem is that Julian.
Yeah,
and so
forcing
you're
people
right.
to have sex.
That should be the way that Clay reads it. But you're totally right. The way that they do it, the way that he sees it is
because he says try to make me understand, which makes me feel. It's not just the drug taking or the there's some coded dialogue where it's like make me understand why you are gay, because this is not you, or this is not, or you're doing gay things. This is not the way it should be. This is not the way the world should work, kind of thing. And that's the problem. Knowing the writer, knowing the world it comes from, what he's trying to say, it is problematic for me.
It is,
but it's there's definitely something there, and I only really kind of I thought it was. I think I remember finding it quite shocking, that scene where he bursts in, and because again they only very vaguely imply it in the beginning, but because I'd seen it, I was like, okay, they're bleeding up to the scene where this happens. Does it happen now? Does it happen later? I have to say, him like going like cold turkey is probably the best phrase. I thought that scene was done actually very well. I thought that kind of montage and him, and I used to kind of do some kind of bit. I've never been into kind of hard drugs or anything like that, but I've done I did go through a time where I was like binge drinking, and I do remember like having vomit down myself and being in a kind of a similar state, during some of my darker days. And again, I thought that was quite powerful in the fact that they care for him, look after him. And you can see it's not easy for them. You can see that they're struggling with it. And it's not like, they're there. It's fucking hard that they're having to do this and be there. And they're doing all this work. And Jamie Gertz's character Blair's explaining that this is what it's been like. This is really what I've been doing and spending my time doing. It's not just having sex and fun and stuff. And then me doing a bit of cocaine every now and again is my release from all the pressure here and trying to keep this together and keep him alive.
But if you had been here with your magic penis, Clay.
If only you were here with your magic penis to cure my cocaine addiction.
For everybody. You could have begged Julian too, and then he'd be fine too because you're
exactly.
magic.
Because sex with good boys cures all ills, Tony.
It's true. It's totally true. No, you're right. See, and that's where Gertz is doing her finest acting.
I think she's great. And I like that Andrew McCarthy's frustrated and he's struggling with it and he doesn't really know how to... Again, he doesn't really know because they play with it. They play with the ideas and the themes of the book, and that he isn't really. And it's almost like the actors want to try and push through the actual script and give us what the book was about and what the book was saying, and it feels like it's like I don't know, it's like a colander or something. They're slowly like pushing it through the pasta maker or the spaghetti maker or whatever it is. It's slowly coming through, but it's not really there. So I do appreciate it. I don't think it's a bad film. I think it's a it's a
2.5 out of 5.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's fair. I think that's fair. Yeah, I think that's a fair kind of ranking for it. Again, I would watch it if you want to see an early banger of a Robert Downey Jr., but it's also, a performance, but also it's quite real as well. I think this is a good film for you. But yeah, it's not. If you're looking for an uplifting Christmas film, this is not the one.
No, this is not it. I would say back to that detox scene you talked about, lighting and cinematography. That scene.
Gorgeous.
It's like in one room and they shoot it so well because it's in a loft. Blair lives in a loft, so it's like open space. And it's
like a music video almost.
It is, and it's shot. That's what you're talking about. Like, so they're not talking. It's all sound. It's music. They have to and obviously Robert Downey Jr. They had to get them all wet and then
ice.
Go.
Put the ice on him.
Yeah, and it's. I think that is really well shot and really well lit. It could have been. It's a hard scene to watch, and if it had been done, and again, we talk about lighting director, if it had been lit differently, it wouldn't have worked.
No, exactly. I think there could have been a lot of cliches in that scene as well, like the standard kind of getting off drugs situation.
Right.
You've seen it a million times in films, but I think the fact that it's not one person, it's not Train Spotting, for example. It's not that. It's and that's a hard watch as well.
Yeah,
exactly. It is a loving, caring pair of people who love this person, doing their work for him, like doing the heavy lifting of the the detox, like you said, which I think is it's not something you always see. I think in these films, it's because it's like your problem, so you get off drugs and you stay in this room until you're clean, and then you never go back, kind of thing. So, yeah,
I definitely feel the guy who wrote Trainspotting, whose name is eluding me, wrote the movie and the book and the play. He obviously read this book.
Oh, definitely. I think so.
Yeah.
Or he at least saw the film.
He at least saw the
minimum.
Film. So I know we're coming up to it. So I promised it was a tease an hour and a half later. So the title of the movie, of the book, and the title of the movie. The title of the movie, you can read it. You're talking about nihilism, less than zero, whatever. It's an Elvis Costello song. And Elvis Costello, it's from his very first album, 1977. Elvis Costello's first album comes out. Elvis and the Attractions. Great stuff. I love Elvis. I say I love Elvis. There's not an Elvis Costello song that I've heard and that song sucks. It's weird about Elvis. He's one of those guys that's in my periph. I could fill a greatest hits in my mental hits, greatest hits of Elvis, and it would be 35 songs. But I don't own any Elvis Costello records. Do you know what I mean? It's he's just been my whole life. I was born in 1973. I've never known life without Elvis Costello. Do you know what I mean? He's just so. But anyway, there's a song that he wrote called Less Than Zero. That is where the title comes. It is based on that, and there's an Elvis Costello poster staring at them the whole time in this movie. So it is very specific to that song, and so then that would make you then want to go, look that up and see what the lyrics were, and so it is a song about people going through some shit, and so Easton Ellis took the inspiration from it. He named the book that. He writes Elvis into the book, which all of the music from this movie, here's a thought. It's right there waiting for you. Even if you wanted to do a cover, all the rest of them are covers, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
So that's where the title comes from.
Yeah.
Not explained it. And there's not even a poster of Elvis in the background.
No, I think the taglines of the film kind of are like, oh, you've got everything until you've got less than zero. You know, you think you've got it all, and then tomorrow you've got less than zero. And
the line is, the best line is, turn up the TV, no one listening will suspect. Even your mother won't detect it. No, your father won't know. They think you've got no respect, but everything means less than zero.
Yeah, there you go.
So that's...
I think that's that one line. You know, everything means less than zero is the core thing to
But I just think it's weird that again they clearly didn't read the book to just throw a poster of Elvis in the background, something anywhere.
Do something. I want to go through a bit of trivia just before we kind of finish. I've not got any listener comments, so I'll just go through.
Because everybody's like, "What fucking movie is that? Robert Downey Jr. What is that?"
Yeah. Who's seen this?
I've
never heard of this. So apparently it was Ellis was inspired by the moral ambiguity of American Gigolo initially when he was writing his book. Brad Pitt is also in this film.
I've heard that, right? Yes, he's an extra somewhere, right?
Yeah, of course.
Is that one of the many drug-fueled cocaine parties?
Yeah, it's in the opening scene. I couldn't spot him because there's far too many people and weird shit going on. But apparently he was paid $38 for his appearance, which sounds about how much I was paid for most of my acting work.
Nice.
And he was trying to say dialogue. He kept trying to say, slip in some dialogue so he could get his SAG card. And then the director came over and said, next time you do that, you're fired. Do not do that, Brad Pitt. Do not attempt to do that. So we had that. Apparently Clay's last name is Easton, which is a reference to Easton Ellis, of course. Joel Schumacher, speaking of St. Elmo's Fire, was offered to direct as well.
That might have been why he might not have wanted to, because they were like, take all the gay out.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
like, I don't know if you've met me. Did you just watch my gay vampire movie? There's no way.
Wait till I get to Batman and Robin and I'll go hell for leather. I'll get the nipples and everything.
Fat nipples.
Get ready for it.
Yeah.
Yes, I do like Joel Schumacher as a filmmaker. I talked about it
too. I'm sorry to say, but he knew the assignment. Batman and Robin is exactly the film he wanted to make. I think if you respect the man who gave us Lost Boys, the gay vampire movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he gave us this, Batman and Robin. It is a love letter to Adam West and Burt Ward, and it's okay. The problem is they just tried to keep it in universe, and it just you've gone so from
what it
Batman
was.
'89 to that. But I still say that movie's not as bad. Schwarzenegger is the problem with that movie.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that. Stephen Colbert auditioned for this movie. Apparently.
To play who?
I have no idea. Maybe Downey Jr.'s Julian, maybe.
Wow, that would have been bad.
Yeah, probably. So that's probably why they didn't do it. But it was different bad. Andrew McCarthy was hired to appeal to teenage girls. Given that the novel it's based on, I don't know if maybe that was a good thing.
Nope.
And the content of it, but
that's funny.
Yep. Okay. Apparently in the American Psycho novel, Patrick Bateman talks about doing horrible things to Jamie Gertz as well. Apparently. And then what else have we got here? The Red Hot Chili Peppers were in this.
Oh, right. And they cut the scene.
They cut it. Yeah, they cut it. Not that Anthony Lakidis? Is it
Anthony Kiedis?
Anthony
Kiedis. Yeah.
Yeah, bit weird now. Speaking of minors and things, he's married to like a 21-year-old, and he's in his.
Well, I know. So here's just a quick story that
go ahead.
Is probably it's not libelous because I'm not going to name names, but
alleged.
Allegedly, Anthony Kiedis' father would hang out at local coffee because he's from Michigan,
sure.
And so I know a guy who's from the same town as Anthony Kiedis, younger than him, but knows his dad would hang around bars and coffee shops to try to pick up girls because he would say, I'm Anthony Kiedis' dad. So it doesn't surprise me that Anthony Kiedis, now as an adult man, allegedly is into younger women because I learned it from watching you, Dad. It doesn't
Wowza.
surprise me at all.
Wowza. So Marek Kaniewski, again, I'm trying to try pronounce it.
We're going to say that's the name.
We're going to say that's the name, and we're going to stick with it. He went over to Bret Easton Ellis, I think, at the premiere, or met him days before the premiere, and apologized. He was like, I tried to keep the essence of the book. I did my best, but they took it away from me. They butchered it, and now we have what we have. So he kind of apologized, and he didn't do another big kind of budget film again. He kind of stuck to like very low budget kind of fare after that, which is fair enough after that experience. I can completely understand. What else? Oh, Bridget Fonda and Keanu Reeves were considered as well for the role. I'm going to say as Clay and Jamie Gertz.
Honestly, Bridget would have been good as that's a good shout. I think she would. I think she's.
I think she could have nailed it. Yeah,
very good.
I think she could have nailed it.
I think she's. Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's tough for her because she played the straight man in Single White Female, and so Jennifer Jason Leigh is like, whoa!
What a film! What a film!
Right, and you forget that Bridget Fonda's acting her ass off in that movie.
Absolutely,
it's hard to look away from Jennifer Jason Leigh.
The LA Times in 2008 voted Less Than Zero one of the 25 best LA films in the last 25 years.
Wow.
So that captured what LA is all about, apparently. That was one of 25.
Because when you think of LA, you think drugs are bad.
Drugs are bad. Drugs are bad.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. Didn't Roger Ebert give this a thumbs up too?
He did. We spoke about him before, of course, especially Better Off Dead we covered. He famously did not like that. He loved this. This was his favorite.
Crazy.
Again, I don't know what film he was watching, but they have.
Robert Downey Jr.'s performance is distracting.
And Hazy Shade of Winter was nominated by the American Film Institute in the 2004 list of 400 movies nominated for the top 100 America's Greatest Music in Movies for Hazy Shade of Winter.
It's amazing. It's so good, right?
And 20th Century Fox and the producers said this film was meetinged to death about showing the decadence of LA, is what the New York Times reported.
Meetinged to death.
Meetinged to death. So, yeah, you can see why the film has come out as it is. But yes, I think that's all you need to know about Less Than Zero.
I'm going to ask one final question of you. Now that we've gone through this and you've heard it all, do you want the faithful adaptation? Or do we leave that alone? Do you want to see it?
I think I'd watch it out of interest, purely kind of as, I don't know, as an exercise. I think I would watch it if they went for it and did it. Because I think it's an interesting idea, and I think it is an interesting exploration of that kind of zeitgeist era, Gen X, I think there's something there you could mine.
And you have to keep it in the 80s so that.
Oh, absolutely. I would not modernize it
because they need to be disconnected.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't all be on your phone and everything. Yeah, it absolutely would not work. I think it has to be a period piece, and I think that's the only way it could work. Well, again, they didn't when they did American Psycho. They didn't go right 1999 update.
Right. Yeah. No, that doesn't work
because it doesn't work exactly. So I think it's the same with that. I think they did modernize Rules of Attraction, if I remember rightly.
They did.
But there you go. And that didn't. I don't remember. I remember more from this than I remember from that. So this one clearly is.
Yeah, that one. I thought it was fine.
Yeah. There's some interesting like camera stuff, shots and things.
Robert Avery.
Yeah, some really good stuff.
Right?
There.
Didn't Avery do that?
Yeah, I think so.
So that's Tarantino's buddy.
Yeah, there you go.
Right, yeah.
And then, I remember James Van Der Beek really, probably like an Andrew McCarthy, trying to get away from that image of being the childhood soap star and everything. But yes, Tony, thank you very much for ending the year with me. This has been a blast.
It's always good to see you, and I apologize. It's like I always say to Mike, podcasting, it's what adults do to talk to their friends.
Pretty much, yeah. I honestly, someone said, if it's not podcasting, do we actually hang out? And I'm like, probably not, because people got busy lives, and but if there's a project and there's a focus,
then you feel comfortable. It's that weird work ethic. It's that workaholism that we all have.
True.
So no, but so again, I apologize for that. I mean, we text and stuff.
Oh yeah, of course.
This was a delight, and I know it was a downer.
A Robert Downey Jr.
A Robert Downer production. I am not a big fan of the holidays, as you may or may not know. This is not the most magical time of year for me, but I do enjoy seeing you, and I love listening to the alternativity stories. I think you are cutting edge. I feel like lots of websites and stuff who have done no, I mean it. Lots of people do these lists and shit, and they owe you some money.
Okay.
And I just think it's really good, and this was fun. And the fact that you were like, let's do a movie about nihilism where the most talented person on screen dies at the end. Cool.
And then becomes a drug addict.
Robert or Andrew made it sound like he was definitely
it's already there. Yeah, he was already started.
Yeah, right on edge.
It's
amazing.
It wouldn't surprise me. I was like, that's probably why he's so good in it, because he was already living that lifestyle.
I think Jodie Foster pulled him aside. If you ever wanted to do an American Thanksgiving film.
Well, I was going to mention this to you, Tony. I was going to mention this to you.
Yeah.
I know you said, is it House of Yes? I think you mentioned on one podcast.
Yeah, with Parker. That's a tough one. Yeah, that's tough. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think it would fit the theme. I think it would fit the theme. Sure. So yeah, I have been dying to do a Thanksgiving one, so maybe next year.
That one would be good, or Home for the Holidays, which is another Robert Downey Jr. Jodie Foster directed, isn't in. She pulled him aside apparently during the filming and said, "Dude, got to get some help." Because Robert Downey Jr. did not go to the Jodie Foster School for Young Actors who don't get fucked up. There's a handful of them who did. Like Haley Steinfeld clearly went to that Jodie Foster School of I can grow up as a child actor and grow up and not be crazy. Robert Downey Jr. did not. She tried, though, I guess, to get him clean. Because apparently he was fucked up that entire movie. And he is ridiculous. Anne Bancroft is in that movie, and Anne fucking Bancroft is in that movie, and he's like outshining her. It's such a great movie.
Definitely, I think that we'll put that in the schedule somewhere.
Okay, I love it very much. It's my favorite Thanksgiving film. It's better than Trains, Planes, and Automobiles. I think.
Absolutely. Well, this season, this alternativity stories season has been a bit different, and I've tried to go.
It has. I appreciate it.
Yeah. I didn't want to just go for the kind of the wacky horror films again. I wanted to do something a bit more maybe touching, a bit more sad, a bit more poignant, with a bit of pathos. So I've tried my best to do that. I mean, I still did a weird Killing Santa comic at the start.
Of course you did. Why wouldn't you? We would be disappointed.
Exactly. And I think
we'd be worried about you. Like, what's wrong with Dan?
Jesus, why is he doing all this depressing stuff? Less than zero, Spencer. What's going on?
Yeah.
But no, I appreciate that. And again, like for a lot of people out there, holidays can be difficult. They can be alone. You can be with people that you may not necessarily get on with or have difficulties with. Family members. So it can be difficult and it can be hard. And it's not always happy. It's not always joyful. It's not always full of revelry and stuff. So, but yeah, I like to kind of show the other side of things. Again, we'd like it to be all happy and joy and stuff, and some people want to, like Megan is very much wants to believe that is what Christmas is all about, but again, for some people it's not, and that's fine as well. But I appreciate you taking the time, because this is a difficult time of year to pin people down. Again, Andy couldn't be here today, so I appreciate you stepping in at the last minute.
Well, I am a husk of a substitute from Angry Andy, but I love that guy.
There's no substitutions, no replacements. That's why I didn't just go, let's do Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence.
That
had to be something for you specifically, something you want to talk about. We'll get to that somewhere down the line at some point. But again, I appreciate you, love you, and thank you for all the kind words as always, and your time. I'm going to leave all of your links in the show notes. I know we're short for time, so I won't get you to say them all. I'll just put them in the notes. But thank you again, Tony, and you can find me on spiderdown@secretballs.com. And I want to thank my patrons, including Mr. Tony Farina here, enjoying all the good content. If you want to support the podcast, please consider it and go over to my Patreon. Again, the link will be in the show notes. But yes, top of my list, Tony Farina, I Am Jack's Musing, Simon Cotton, Paul Meller, Mike Burton, Angry Andy, Tonya Todd, Math, Scott Hodgson, Ria Kerrigan, and Sarah Coyne. I'm wishing all of you guys happy holidays, whatever you celebrate, however you celebrate it. I hope you're having a good time, looking after yourself, and being kind to yourself as well, which I'm trying to do more of as well. So yeah, thank you guys. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, everyone. It's been a wonderful year. It's been an excellent year. Tell me what your favourite stuff was. Did you enjoy stuff? Who's your favourite guest? Is it Tony? Is it Andy? Is it both
Andy.
of them? Is it everybody? It's everybody. Tell me what you want. Tell me what you don't want. Just let me know. It's been really positive. A lot of good things. Numbers going up and everything. I'm giving more and more choice to my patrons. So if you want to choose exactly what happens, what's coming out, what's going out, please do that. That'd be a wonderful Christmas present, and I'd really appreciate it if you could. But yeah, you guys are wonderful. Thank you for the support. This is my therapist described this as a lifeline for me, and I will describe it as the exact same thing. But thank you, Tony, and thank you. And as always, prepare for prattle.